Hello Internet, hope you're doing well. Rob from AMinorError, and in this video we're going to take a look at one really killer lunchbox style head from Mesa. This is the Mark V 25. I'm a little late to the party here, putting out this review. This head's been out for a long time now, but damn, I think it's a piece of gear you should not sleep on. For its size and how good it sounds, it's really hard to hate on. And first, before we get into it, Mesa didn't send it to me. They have no idea who I am. I'm a small YouTube channel, so I did buy it with my own money. And yeah, all my opinions are going to be my opinions, and they're not like influenced or biased at all. Beyond just my own opinions, at least. So let's get on with the review. So the Mesa Mark V 25, as its name implies, it's a 25 watt head. It is a 2-channel head, and it is a part of the Mark series of amps, which are the amps that are like, you know, super famous for like Metallica tones, and especially I think Dream Theater, John Petrucci. I've got the tattoo on my arm, you know, total fanboy. Have loved Petrucci and his tones forever, so this amp is a part of that sort of lineage. It's basically a spin-off of the Mark V, but just been simplified and shrunk down. Now, in each of the 2 channels, you do have a little micro toggle switch to flip around between different modes. So on the clean side, you've got a clean, fat, and a crunch switch, and then on your drive sound, you've got a Mark II, C+, you've got the Mark IV, and then you've got an extreme setting. Moving down the controls, the 2 channels have identical knobs to adjust it. You've got your gain control setting, a treble, a middle, a bass knob, a presence knob, then your master volume knob, and another micro toggle switch where you can turn on or off the 5-band EQ, which is one of the special things about the Mark series heads. It's one of the things that makes them very unique and helps you kind of get that, again, super famous Mark series Mesa tone. Just past the 5-band EQ, you've got the ability to step down the output wattage on each channel, which is kind of cool. This gives you 2 different flavors. You've got your 25 or a step down 10 watt mode. And at the far end of your amp, you got your regular old power switch and a standby switch. This amp is foot switchable too, so you do get the ability to change channels and potentially turn on and off that 5-band EQ remotely without having to go to the amp. The back panel of this head is feature-packed. It's got a ton of stuff going on. So you've got an effects send and return, you've got a headphone output, independent knobs to control a reverb for channel 1 or channel 2, a pair of 4 ohm outputs, then one 8 ohm output, the ability to turn off the speaker output and actually use the head on its own without needing an external load box, a CabClone DI output with the switch to change between 2 different presets of an open or closed back cab model, and then a ground lift. So, like, damn, this little teeny 25 watt head has a ton of stuff going on here, and there's a load of flexibility. So there's a good chance you're going to be able to get this to work for you for any situation you might run into in the studio or live. So the tone, how does this head sound? It sounds freaking incredible. The clean tones really are amazing, up to including that crunch channel. The crunch channel on channel 1 is a little secret weapon loaded in there as well. And from your high gain stuff, you're getting all of your normal Mesa Boogie goodness that we've all come to know and love from a variety of records. You know, again, I'm a Dream Theater guy, but this head has been used on loads of different albums, especially when you pair it with a Mesa cab. I had a 2x12 vertical cab for the longest time, and honestly, the 2x12 sounded so good. A 4x12, like, just no need for a 4x12 at all. I had a 4x12 for the longest time, switched to the 2x12, sounded just as big, just as much low-end chunk coming from the vertical 2x12. I think the vertical one is like the one to go with, because you get that sound and then the look of basically a stack or a half stack, but it is way lighter. I mean, the cab is still heavy, but it's way, I mean, one person can move it. I moved mine on my own for years. So yeah, this head paired with a Mesa cab, damn, it sounds freaking incredible. Both from the clean, but more importantly, you know, you buy a Mesa head for Mesa tone. We're talking about distortion, and damn, yeah, it sounds really freaking good. I played in a band with a guy who had a Mark V, the full-size head, for about 10 years, and I know what that head sounded like running again through another Mesa 2x12, and the Mark V 25 sounds just as good. It's every part as good of the full-size head. So if you're looking for something a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable, because man, his head, he had it like in a burly road case, like that thing was really heavy. You needed 2 people really to move that head and not risk hurting yourself. The Mark V 25, no big deal. The thing is crazy light. Even in a road case, you know, get like a good quality flight case, it's gonna be totally manageable for one person. Still gonna be, you know, heavier than, like, you know, having like a quad cortex, obviously. But as far as the tone and the portability of this, it's awesome. This thing is great. Would be awesome for live and just as good for in the studio. Okay, halfway through the video, time for me to plug who the hell I am. My name is Rob, this is my channel, AMinorError. I'm a Berklee College of Music grad, and I create guitar content here on YouTube. Guitar reviews, product reviews, release my own original music, and I do give virtual guitar lessons. So if you like the playing from the clips that you're seeing, and you like to learn to shred, I teach pretty much everything, whether it's harmony, theory, ear training, production, you know, the whole bit. So depending on when you're seeing this, maybe I have a couple virtual lesson slots open. There's only like a couple on Sundays right now that I've just kind of opened up. So if you're interested and you like the video, you know, the contact information is down below. So moving on. So let's talk about the negatives. A couple things that I don't like about it, because it's not perfect, like any product isn't. The first thing is, if you've never tried to dial a Mark Series head, just be ready to spend way more time than you wanted to tweaking it. The Mesa stuff, you've really got to learn your way around it. It's not like a Marshall where you're gonna just plug in, you know, grab your middle or your bass and a little bump here and you got your sound and you're good to go. The thing with the Mesa Mark Series heads that you need to know is that the EQ section, where you see bass, middle, and treble, those knobs, that's pre-distortion. So if you go and you want more low end and you turn up the bass knob, you're adding more bass to your actual guitar signal into the preamp. So it's gonna then make the distortion have more low end going into it. So if you want more low end, you really need to use the 5-band EQ. Wow. That's where the real power is. And I think for a lot of guitar players, you're not going to be used to thinking in terms of a 5-band EQ as much as you're used to thinking bass, middle, treble knobs. So this is a head where you got to know it's Quirks. So if you want a nice, tight, low-end rhythm guitar sound, where it's not like flubby, right? You gotta, basically, the trick here is to turn the bass off, essentially. No bass on the actual knob, it's set to 0. middle and treble, just keep them straight up and down, and then use the fader to then carve out your tone and find, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for. So you might find that very unintuitive to start. I know for me, there was a little bit of a learning curve here. I used a Mesa tri-axis rig for 15 years. And even that unto itself, I mean, after having the thing for 10 years, I was still finding new tones and new ways of tweaking it and dialing it and getting in new sounds. So I wasn't used to the Mark Series head. I'd never had a Mesa Mark Series head before. So there is that learning curve behind it. You need to know that your EQ section on the tone stack is pre-drive. You know, so if you need to dial your tone, it's got to be with the 5-band EQ. And again, those faders might seem a little counterintuitive or a little confusing at first, basically. Now, obviously, there's loads of videos online. If you're trying to get a Petrucci-esque tone, you know, he's got loads of videos where he shows how he dials in his own head, and you can basically copy those settings to more or less get in the same ballpark. So that's the first, you know, sort of negative, is that it is a little confusing potentially, and it is the kind of thing that's going to take a little time to get dialed in. I don't think you're going to just plug in your guitar if you've never used the head before and just like, oh yeah, I got my sound, everything's great. There's going to be some exploring. There's some quirks to learn here about the head and about that sort of workflow. Now, that said, once you get it down, yeah, that's where you get that Mesa tone with just like reckless amounts of low end and just that like scooped, focused tone that we all love, right? So, awesome amp, but not something that you're going to just dial in like 5 minutes. It's just not going to happen. In the end, my biggest problem actually with the amp is that there's only one 5-band EQ. So again, you know, the tone stack controls are pre-distortion, so your real tone shaping is with the 5-band, and the way you need to set the 5-band potentially to get a rhythm tone isn't going to be how you're going to want to dial it in order to get like a lead tone. And that ultimately was my problem with the head, is that the versatility here is all there. All of the sounds you could possibly want are in the amp, but it's not going to be just like, you know, it's not a 3-channel amp. It's only a 2-channel amp, and when you pair only 2 channels with only one 5-band EQ, it's just so limited in practicality. In other words, hit a foot switch, bam, you get your sound. That's not there in this. It's really a 2-sound amp, kind of 3 depending on how you use the 5-band EQ. You know, it depends on how you're using that. You could foot switch that on and off on the different channels. So that was kind of my biggest problem in the end with it, was I was struggling to get like, okay, here's my tone for my rhythm, but then what do I do for my lead? And then the lead back to rhythm. It's just like, and then you're messing around with and then like can't remember what I did, and it's just, so for me that is kind of the bummer, and that's what makes like the JP2C like the head that I wish I had the money to go buy, because you get 2 5-band EQs. You got a 3-channel amp plus the 2 5-band EQs, and that's all of the flexibility you'll ever need to really nail your rhythm tone, your lead tone, your clean tone. You got everything in there. So that's kind of the downfall. Obviously, it's a small amp, you know, with everything that's packed into it already. You know, I haven't even gotten into, you know, the fact that you can turn off the speaker and just use it, you know, direct and all that. I mean, there's so much stuff here, but in the end, that was my problem, and it was like, I just felt like I was fighting with it and didn't have that ease of use where I just like hit a button, boom, now I got my sound while I'm teaching my lesson. And ultimately, I was trying to use it paired with the Torpedo Captor X, and the Captors, in my opinion, impulse responses don't sound good. So it was like this combination of like, the Captor didn't have the flexibility I needed from an EQ to get it dialed, so that it was like mix ready in the box for my lessons. And then you pair that with the head that only has the one 5-band EQ, and it's just like, it just wasn't working. In the end, I decided to go with a quad Cortex, despite the quad Cortex's many failings. I'm shooting this the day before Core OS 3 comes out. It's ridiculous that we don't have the plugins on it still. But still, the Cortex has the flexibility that is perfect for virtual lessons, and ultimately that was kind of like the deal breaker. Do I think the Mark V sounds better and is more consistent in its response to picking and just all the different things that a lead guitar player especially might potentially be looking for. Yeah, of course. No, the head is so much better. In a perfect world, I wish I could keep the head and then use it paired with potentially my quad Cortex. Like something like that would be such an incredible setup. But I am not made of money. I have twins, so I have to, they're already expensive piece of equipment, right? A quad Cortex is pushing $2,000. So in the end, I decided the head, as much as I did love it, which just wasn't for me. The lack of flexibility, really, with only one 5-band EQ, just didn't do it for me for what I was trying to do. But if I was going to be gigging again, potentially, and wouldn't be doing, again, just like an all DI sort of a setup, I could totally see where, one of these heads would be awesome. You pair this head, again, with like a 2x12, or hell, even like a Mesa 1x12. Like, if you gotta have a real speaker on stage with a real amp, man, that's gonna be pretty hard to beat. So, in the end, it just didn't work for what I was doing, specifically because I make my living teaching virtual lessons. The Quad Cortex just was a better fit. So, conclusions. Do I think you should consider the Mark V 25? Hell yeah, it's a killer amp. Sounds great, especially for that in-the-room amp sound. I'm putting together a couple reviews where I'm shooting out the neural stuff against the Torpedo and against a real amp. And when I was reamping it and sending my DI signals back through the amp into my 2x12, like just hearing that in the room, I mean, man, it just sounds so freaking good. And yeah, there's still something magical about, the way an amp sounds in the room with it bouncing around off of everything, and the tone that you're able to get, obviously close miking and all that kind of good stuff. So hopefully stop by my channel, check out that video, shooting out against the different things. But hell yeah, you gotta love this amp. Its size, its tone, what it packs is really impressive. There's a lot of flexibility here. I definitely would recommend it. So thank you for watching the video. Hit like and subscribe if you liked it. Helps feed the algorithm, and I greatly appreciate the support. Have a good one.